I never knew I'd be given to a stranger until his shocking secret changed everything. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air was thick with tension as I stood in front of a stranger, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like I was holding my breath, waiting for something to happen, like the moment before a storm breaks. The man was tall, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to look through me, searching for something buried deep inside. I never knew giving up everything could be wrapped in such mystery. I was just a girl trying to find her way in a world that felt too big, too chaotic. My father had just lost his job, and my mother was drowning in anxiety. Silence filled our once lively home, a gaping void that made my chest ache. Friends had become distant echoes, and laughter was a memory. The weight of desperation pressed down on us every single day. The future was a dark cloud looming over my head. Then I met him. He appeared out of nowhere, walking into my life as if he held the answers to all my questions. My heart skipped a beat. I could see pain swirling in those eyes. I could sense secrets hiding in the shadows of his smile. My intuition screamed for me to run, yet I felt tugged towards him like a moth to a flame. There was something about his presence that offered a glimmer of hope amidst my despair. But the air around us crackled with unspoken words. The moment felt charged. He hesitated, words tumbling into silence as he reached for my hand. I felt his touch, cool yet electric, causing my heart to race. What was he keeping from me? A trembling fear shot through me, a fear of the unknown. His voice, low and rugged, whispered promises wrapped in mystery. "You don't know what you're getting into," he said, each word heavy with gravity. My breathing quickened. What did that mean? The world around us blurred as the night deepened, and I could sense eyes watching from the shadows. Who were they? It felt as if we were actors in a play, the audience eager for the next scene. Just then, he unbuttoned his coat, revealing a glimpse of something that sent chills down my spine. A glint of silver key. My mind raced. A key to what? I couldn't shake the feeling that this was about to change everything in ways I couldn't begin to comprehend. My heart felt like it was trapped in a vice. I had a million questions, but before I could speak, he looked deep into my eyes, as if searching for something. "You can't go back," he warned, and his eyes were a storm of emotions: fear, sadness, urgency. I had no idea how true those words would become. Before I could respond, a scream shattered the night, a sound filled with panic and terror. It echoed through the darkened streets, pulling us back to reality. My breath hitched as I realized something had gone terribly wrong. What had I stumbled into? Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The scream sliced through the tinged night air and sent a jolt of adrenaline through my veins. I glanced at him, confusion and fear mixing in an aching swirl inside me. He grabbed my wrist, eyes darting toward the shadows from which the scream had emanated. "We need to go now," he insisted, urgency lacing his tone. Panic bubbled in my throat, but before I could protest or ask questions, he started pulling me down the dimly lit street. The world was a dizzying blur of headlights and whispers, the night closing in around us. I stumbled, trying to keep up, every instinct within me screaming to turn back, to run home where it was safe. But there was something intoxicating about his fear, a magnetism that rooted me to his side. "Please, just trust me," he said, glancing over his shoulder with eyes wide and fervent. I searched for comfort in those depths but only found a storm brewing as we rounded a corner. The chaos erupted again. Shouts filled the air, punctuated by the sound of breaking glass. My heart raced, and every logical thought fled my mind. What's happening? Who are they? I gasped, breathless. "The people after me. They want what I have," he replied, and for a brief moment, a flicker of vulnerability crossed his face, leaving a crack in his confident facade. And now they might want you, me? The word echoed in my mind, thick with dread. What did he mean? I glanced around, the shadows seemed to writhe, and for a brief moment, I wanted nothing more than to retreat to my old life, filled with unremarkable worries of homework and school lunches. A sudden thought pierced through my fog of uncertainty. My family. Were they safe? I felt guilt creeping in, heavy and unwelcome. What about my parents? I pleaded, panic bleeding into my voice. They're safe for now, but we must keep moving. He urged again, pulling me along, our footsteps echoing in synchronization with the mounting chaos behind us. We ducked into an alley, the world around us morphing into a silent embrace. My heart was a wild drum, resonating with the uncertainty of everything I was feeling. I glanced up at him, seeing the shadows dance across his jawline. He looked like he was carrying the weight of the universe on his shoulders. Yet still, there was an unyielding intensity in his gaze. Suddenly, a shadowy figure emerged from the edge of the alleyway, a silhouette outlined by the overhead streetlight. My body tensed, ready to bolt, but the stranger spoke before I could move. Wait, they said softly, almost kindly, and I blinked in surprise as I recognized the voice. Isla. It was Val, my old friend. Her features were drawn tight with concern, but in her eyes shone a flicker of familiarity that brought me an inch of solace. I was looking for you, she cried, rushing toward me, every movement brimming with urgency. You've got to get out of here. They're coming. But my world tumbled, one confusing moment washing into another. Val had always been my rock, someone I could rely on through thick and thin. What do you mean? Who's coming? Before she could answer, he stepped closer to Val, narrowing the space between them. You shouldn't be here, he warned, possessive and defensive. I could feel the tension crackle like electricity between them, and I became acutely aware of the danger dancing around us. Val's gaze flickered between us, uncertainty wrinkling her brow. It doesn't matter, we need to leave. Follow me. Her voice was steady, carrying an air of finality. I hesitated, caught between the past and this chaotic present, my loyalty pulling me one way while fear tugged me another. The silence that enveloped us was suffocating, and a small seed of hope blossomed in my chest, driven by the urgency in Val's tone. Isla, please, she urged, worry etching her face. I can help you. But could I trust her? The question danced in my mind, swirling with every flicker of light from my chaotic surroundings. Just as I opened my mouth to voice my thoughts, a thunderous crash interrupted us, rattling the walls around us. The moment hung in the air, suspended in dread and uncertainty. His hand found mine, squeezing tightly as shadows flared in the distance, their silhouettes growing against the night sky. You're not safe here, he urged with a fierceness that ignited a flicker of defiance in me. Neither direction felt right, and the stakes felt impossibly high. My heart raced as I struggled to weigh the choices ahead of me, panic clawing at my insides.
Isla.
Val's voice broke through the fog of paralysis. We can't wait. Suddenly, the choice was ripped from my hands as a piercing wail of sirens echoed through the alleyway. I glanced between Val's impassioned plea and the raw intensity of the man at my side, the gravity of the moment crashing down around us. In that heartbeat, everything shifted. The future held too many unknowns, but I knew one thing above all. I was at a crossroads. The sirens were closing in, and I had to decide who I was willing to trust in this moment of chaos, knowing that one choice could change everything. A sudden idea struck me like lightning, and before I could overthink, I made my decision. We need to go together, I blurted out, my voice rising above the noise. All of us, the three of us, a chaotic trio standing on the edge of uncertainty, dashed deeper into the darkness, the unknown looming like an ominous shadow. As I ran, I felt the weight of each choice pressing down on my shoulders, the urgency of the moment pulling us forward. And deep down, a flicker of dread settled in my gut of fear that this frantic decision could either unite us or tear us apart, forever changing the course of our lives. But before that played out, the night offered one last surprise. A flicker of light in the distance, illuminating the shadows. A familiar vehicle approached with headlights piercing the dark, and my heart dropped. I recognized it all too well. It was the car that had chased after me before, a harbinger of the secrets yet to be unearthed. The headlights swept across the alley, blinding me momentarily. My breath caught in my throat, and for a heartbeat, the world came to a standstill. Shadows flickered on the edges of my mind, whispers of old fears intertwined with the dread that coursed through my veins. That car was a relic of my past, a reminder of everything I feared yet could not fully comprehend. "Isla, we need to run," he urged, his grip tightening on me as panic surged in his eyes. Val's presence was like a lifeline, yet the choice felt like a betrayal, the air crackling with tension among us. "Now!" He began pulling me away from the light, but when I looked back, I saw Val's face, a mixture of fear and determination. Just as he dragged me towards the corners of uncertainty, Val shouted, "Wait, I won't let you take her without a fight." I froze, torn apart by the disparate pulls of loyalty and fear. "Val, let's just go," pleaded, but the defiance simmering beneath her skin ignited a fire within me. She was my friendly anchor in this maelstrom of chaos. The vehicle's engine growled like a beast coming alive, and suddenly a figure stepped out, silhouetted against the blinding light, tall and imposing. My heart raced as fear clawed at my mind. "What do we do?" I gasped, darting glances between Val and the shadowy figure that loomed in the entrance of the alley. "I can't let them have you, Isla," Val warned, her voice dropping to a whisper soaked in urgency. "There's something they didn't tell you, something you need to know before it's too late." The figure advanced, the shadows swirling around them like ghosts, each step echoing with threats and uncertainty. The closer they got, the clearer it became I wouldn't let myself be dissected under this chilling truth without knowing it all. "He's dangerous," Val pleaded, her gaze turning to the man beside me. "You don't know what he can do. I've had to do terrible things to survive," he said, voice low yet fierce, betraying the weight of choices long made. The desperation in his tone pulled at something deep within me, an urge to understand, to fight against the tide of uncertainty. Did I trust him? I found myself saying, my own voice a tremor in my chest, but it was the singular truth I was clutching to in this whirlwind of emotions. "He's trying to protect me." A flare of uncertainty flickered across Val's face, blindsided between the two of us who had once held her heart and mind. "But you don't even know what it means to trust," she countered, anger mingling with desperation as she stepped towards us. "You don't know what he has hidden beneath that confident mask." In that moment, everything felt suffocatingly real, the tangled threads of loyalty, fear, and the unknown coiling tightly around us as anticipation wrapped its arms around me, holding me in place. The looming figure was close now, their intentions unreadable behind the wheel of the night that threatened to engulf us all. "We don't have time for this," the shadowy figure barked, voice deep and resonating through the alley. "You need to come with me, Isla. There's no other way." Panic surged as his hold on me tightened. "You can't take her," Val shouted, stepping forward, her demeanor transforming into an insistent wall of defiance. "She deserves to know the truth. If you try to stop me, I swear you'll regret it," the figure replied with an eerie calmness that sent chills racing down my spine. With Val standing defiantly against the encroaching danger, I felt my heart tug in two directions. On one side, my history with Vala, foundation of friendship nurtured through countless late-night talks and shared fears. On the other, the man beside me, an enigmatic force drawing me closer to an irrevocable destiny that I could not comprehend. Then the shadows shifted, and the night howled broken promises. In that swirling vortex of emotion, the tension peaked, and I made a move, pushing back against the familiar and stepping toward the unknown. "Did I need to know?" I breathed, looking at both of them. "I need to know why all of this is happening." The air hung heavy with revelation, and a flicker of recognition passed between the figure and Val, an understanding I wasn't yet privy to. "Isla," Val said, her voice steadier now, "there's a secret that could change everything. You deserve to know who you really are." Another crash of words that felt like a knife twisting deeper in my side. The promises of safety were shattered, and the truth loomed ominously in the dark. "Come with me if you want answers," the figure insisted, voice resolute yet laced with a flicker of something softer. "The choice is yours, but understand I'll have to bear the weight of the truth." Before I could respond, the night shifted again, echoing with the sound of footsteps approaching rapidly. My heart raced once more, caught somewhere between past and present, choice and consequence. Val's eyes locked onto mine, pleading, while the man beside me flared with a determination that met my uncertainty with intensity. And there it was, the precipice of an unknown truth, blooming like a flower steeped in shadows, just waiting to be unveiled. If I took a step forward toward him, his world would become mine, forcing me into an orbit I knew little of but hungered to understand. But if I turned back to Val, I could reclaim the vestiges of my past, but I would forever wonder about the depths of what I might leave behind. Just as the shadows began to encircle us, the cold air filled with dread and anticipation, I felt my world slipping through my fingers, the weight of choice resting on my shoulders. The sirens howled closer, the impending chaos igniting the air around us, and I knew the decision had to come now. In this moment charged with impossibilities, and the cacophony of voices rising within me, I took a breath, realizing one choice would forever change my life: to unravel the mysteries surrounding me or risk everything for the comfort of the known. The end of the night would shift my world and reveal something I was not ready to face, a shocking revelation that would shatter everything I thought I knew about myself. As the footsteps echoed louder, the moment hung thick with possibility, and I braced myself for the choice that would shape my fate, my heart racing beneath the weight of a truth waiting to be unleashed. The sirens wailed like banshees in the night, an unwelcome soundtrack to the storm of emotions swirling within me. I could feel the gravity of the moment pulling me in both directions, toward the mysterious figure who exuded an air of danger and hidden truths, and back to Val, whose fierce loyalty was a lighthouse in this tempest. Everything inside me screamed for clarity, for a window into the chaos threatening to consume us. A flicker of movement caught my eye, shadows darting with urgency, but I forced myself to hold still, torn between past and potential. "Isla," the figure called, his voice low and persuasive. "Every second we waste puts you further in danger. They're already looking for you." "They?" I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. The weight of his words fell over me like a heavy cloak, suffocating yet oddly familiar. I began to envision mists of the past swirling around my understanding of who I was, shadows of people I once knew, faces twisted in memories warped by fear. "Yes, those who set this in motion," he continued, stepping closer. The light illuminated his features more clearly, revealing a face lined with determination. "They know about your past, Isla. They know things that you haven't yet uncovered. But I can help you. We can unravel it together." "For all we know, he could be lying," Val interjected, her voice a surge of solidarity mixed with panic. Her body remained poised in front of me, unwavering against the approaching darkness. "You've seen who he is. We don't know the extent of his influence. What if he's trapping you into another cycle of deceit?" "Val," I tried to reason, my heart clashing with my mind. "What if he's telling the truth? What if everything I've lived, everything you've supported, has been built on something false?" My voice trembled, the truth sliding into view like shards of glass. Things were shifting, details I had once taken for granted now pulling away like a veil from my eyes. "Don't be rash," Val shot back, every word a fortress against the encroaching uncertainty. "You're not just another pawn in someone else's game. You don't have to fight someone else's battles. I don't even know what my battles are," I murmured, glancing at the figure whose unresolved history with me left a gnawing ache inside my chest. "But maybe, just maybe, finding out could be the path to understanding." The figure straightened, sensing my wavering resolve. "There's so much at stake, Isla. If you don't come with me now, you won't just risk yourself, you'll risk everything you love." His words struck deep, sending jolts through the connective fabric of my life. I looked to Val, my friend, the one who had shared secrets and fears under the fading stars. The bond forged through years of unspoken understanding. The warmth of her presence was at odds with the chill of impending knowledge, and inside me, a storm of emotions swirled as I felt the internal rift deepen. "Isla, The truth about yourself could change everything. Val said, softer now, the defiance fading into despair. But it's not guaranteed to help you. What if it breaks you? Before I could respond, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed closer. My skin prickled with fear as the resolution of choice loomed larger. In the span of a heartbeat, clarity came dimly. I might need to confront the truth, yet our friendship could still form the axis of my choices. I don't want to leave you. I breathed, feeling the rupture of our connection. But I need to know. Everything froze as Val's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. You deserve to know, Isla. But remember, you are more than the circumstances that bind you, even if the truth tries to pull you apart. The figure stepped forward again, urgency bleeding into his movements. The procession of figures advancing toward us was still obscured, shadows contorting around their forms. We'll be outnumbered soon, he said. You have to choose, Isla, now. Do you want to know who you are, or do you want to stay comfortable in ignorance? The abruptness of his words shattered the fog wrapping around my mind. Reality crashed in like a wave. The sirens blared louder, drawing closer, and I felt the foundation of my life crumbling. My heart raced at the thought of what could lie ahead as I weighed my choice. I flashed back to the countless nights Val and I had spent delving into our dreams, punctuated by fears of a future we could barely grasp. I realized then that this was not merely about me. This was about a bond forged in vulnerability and resilience that I will find a way back to you. Promise. I felt the words slipping from my lips as if they were my lifeline to the past. Val's expression softened, but her determination remained unwavering. Promise me one thing: keep your heart open to the truth, but also to those who love you. Don't forget who you are. With that, I looked at the figure, who stood ready to pull me into uncertainties unfathomable. My breath caught in my throat as everything around us collided. Pain, fear, hope, and the promise of transformation spiraled upwards in a brilliant crescendo. I stepped toward the figure, heart pounding, fully aware of the weight of my decision. But just as I stood on the threshold of answering my call, another figure emerged from the shadows, a woman with a knowing expression grounded in both dread and hope. The instant she stepped into view, all the promises I had made felt fragile. In her eyes lay a secret I felt I had known all along. My heart sank as she whispered, "Isla, it's time for you to learn what you really are." The world tilted, and I gasped as memories threatened to surface, pieces of a puzzle I never realized had been missing. The night unfurled with the promise of revelations that could shatter everything I sought to understand, and before I could gather my thoughts, I felt the precariousness of this choice reverberate profoundly within me. The echoes of the woman's words hung in the air like a fragile thread, drawing me toward an unfathomable truth. My chest tightened with fear and anticipation, my connection to Val still fresh in my heart. She had stood unwavering against a tide of uncertainty, the very embodiment of love and loyalty. But standing before this stranger woman whose familiarity intertwined with the depths of my confusion, I felt unmoored, suspended between two divergent paths of my life. Who are you?" I managed to stammer, my voice a mere shadow of the strength I had once embodied. The woman stepped closer, a tremor of recognition flickering in her eyes, as if she had been waiting a lifetime to be reunited with a piece of herself. "I am your mother, Isla." The revelation struck me like lightning. My breath hitched, each syllable searing into my memory with a shattering intensity. The myriad questions I had carried for all these years rushed to the surface, cascading chaotically within me. "No, it can't be. My mother is gone." Her gaze softened, a well of unspoken sorrows pooling in her deep-set eyes. "I loved you so fiercely. I had to make a choice to protect you from a truth that could destroy everything. But now it's time for you to know." And there it was again, the familiar sensation of the world tipping on its axis. Why now? After all this time, why reveal this to me? Why didn't you come sooner? I felt the hot sting of betrayal, the longing for a mother I had thought to be a phantom lost in a childhood nightmare, suddenly colliding with the weight of a painful separation. "Because they are closer than ever, Isla. The danger has escalated," she replied, her voice tremulous yet steady. "They will stop at nothing to keep you from the truth. If you don't understand who you are, you'll never be safe." Val stepped slightly back, the intensity of the moment evidently overwhelming her as she clung to her own resolve. I could sense her heart unraveling in her expressions, the knot between us tightening as her worry seeped into my awareness. "Isla, you don't have to listen to her," she said softly, her words a fragile barrier against the storm of truth unraveling before us. "Please don't let her steal your choices." I turned to Val, conflicted, desperate for a sign of what I should do. The tension hung thick, a collective breath held with anticipation. But deep within, a thread of hope shimmered faintly, a belief that perhaps this revelation could ultimately bind us closer, intertwining our fates in a richer tapestry than silence could afford. "And what is that truth?" I asked my mother, every syllable scratching against the barrier of doubt. She hesitated, her gaze flickering toward the shadows gathering beyond. "You are part of a world that believes you belong to something great, a lineage of strength and abilities. They took me away because I didn't want you to be part of their plans. You have a gift, Isla, but the forces that crave it will come to use you, manipulate you," she finished, her voice laden with the weight of unspoken fears. "I don't want any part of it," I said defiantly, my spirit flaring momentarily in rebellion. "I just want to be free. I want to be me." "You have to face the truth to be free," the woman implored, anguish curling around her features. "Your life depends on it. I couldn't protect you forever." And the haze of explosive emotions, the darkness swirling around us, seemed to pulse with anticipation. I felt the urgency of time pressing upon my shoulders. Just as I thought I had made my choice, a sound split the night, a resonant echo that set my heart racing. From the distance, figures materialized, their silhouettes sharp against the dim light. They were coming, a relentless horde of uncertainty hunters for an unsuspecting truth. My heart stuttered, reality crashing in waves of panic. Here the figure I had stood with turned sharply, his bravado seemingly dwarfed by the approaching chaos. "We need to flee now," he urged, fire ignited in his eyes, a command that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Val stepped in front of me. "No, we can't just run." The anger in her voice turned vocal, an unwavering barricade against the tide of unknown perils. But as the night thickened, I felt trapped, torn between the urgency of knowing and the safety of familiarity. My mother's eyes bore into me, pleading for a choice born from not just obligation but acceptance. Suddenly, the world shifted once more as the figures looming in the distance closed, an instant etched into their features, shadows dancing against the flickering light. The moment seized me. It clutched at my heart like tentative fingers begging for resolution. "Isla." Val's voice rang in my ears as the truth held me captive, woven between the deeper roots of family and the unbearable pain of endless choices. With each heartbeat, I felt my identity fraying, revealing threads of potential and fear that spiraled together in a frantic tumble. Breathing deep, I glanced at my mother once more, her expression a complex tapestry of hope mingled with sorrow. And as I stood there, an uncertain performer in this riveting play, I realized that maybe it wasn't just the truth I sought but the courage to redefine myself amid the tempest roaring around me. Yet even in the eye of that storm, I could feel the ground tilt beneath our feet, the approaching silhouettes now a sea of shadow and rising terror. And with everything swirling, I understood that my allegiance to both the past and the future was about to reshape the very foundations of who I believed I could become. "Isla, they're coming." It was Val's warning shouted just before everything plunged into shadow, before uncertainty wrapped around us like a shroud. In that split second, I felt a shattering decision bloom within my heart, choices that shattered wide open beneath me, the echoes of my past unrelenting. I braced myself for what came next, fully aware that the storm was only beginning. The crackle of electric tension charged the air as shadows lunged forward, whispers of a treacherous world wrapping around me like icy fingers seeking my soul. Val's grip tightened on my arm, her eyes wide with fear and determination, urging me to run. But I was anchored, caught between fear and the tantalizing thread of what it meant to know my mother, to uncover the truths I had buried for so long. "Isla, please." Val's plea crashed against the storm brewing within me. "We can't let them take you without a fight. You have to choose now. The silhouettes surged closer, their intentions cloaked in an overwhelming darkness that enveloped the flickering light of our frail sanctuary. Every instinct screamed for flight, yet somewhere deep inside, an unsettling curiosity awakened. Who were these figures? Why were they searching for me? What truths lay in the shadows they carried? From beside me, my mother seemed to sense my hesitation. "They want to manipulate your gift, Isla," she said, her voice barely a whisper yet resolute against the confusion swirling around us. "But you can resist. You have the strength to forge your own path that I only want to understand." I cried, the words bursting forth with raw urgency. "I want to decide for myself. Please, tell me everything." The intensity of my plea cut through the encroaching darkness, as her gaze locked onto mine, the gravity between us heavy with years of absence. I could see the flicker of something in her eyes, a surge of pride, a promise of guidance, and the pain of knowing what this moment meant for us both. But the figures loomed closer, palpable threats that demanded answers and feasted on uncertainty. Val's voice rushed in again, fervent. "We need to go. We can't waste time here." But before I could respond, a voice boomed from the shadows, resonant and chilling.
"Isla.
You cannot escape what you are nor the legacy you carry." The darkness unfurled around us as a tall figure stepped forward, his features momentarily illuminated by the waning light, a stranger with a familiar aura, one that sent a frisson of recognition slithering down my spine. The air thickened, tightening around us as if even the atmosphere recognized the collision of dual destinies. His eyes, piercing and knowing, bore into mine, unearthing memories half-formed and buried in my subconscious. "You've grown, Isla," he said, the timbre of his voice rolling over me like a wave. "I am here to retrieve what belongs to my family, what rightfully belongs to you." "Who are you?" I demanded, though I felt dim echoes of familiarity hidden beneath my immediate fear. "Your uncle," he replied simply. "And it's time you learned the truth about your lineage and the power that beckons your awakening." And my heart stuttered in disbelief, gripping me with ceaseless intensity. "You're lying," I countered, my voice a trembling facade against the tide of revelation lapping at my feet. "You're just like them. Your involvement in this family of ours is not a choice, it's your birthright," he pressed, his tone unwavering and restrained. The truth of his words collided against my carefully constructed reality, leaving me reeling. Val tugged at my arm, her frustration manifesting in earnest. "He can't be trusted. Isla, don't listen to him. You don't owe anyone anything." "What if he's telling the truth?" I stammered, battling with the chaos of my emotions. Every instinct urged me to run, yet the idea of finally having answers, a path illuminated by blood and legacy, gripped me in a way I could barely decipher. "Your choice always matters, Isla." My mother's voice echoed against the rush of uncertainty, her hand reaching toward me in an unexpected gesture of solidarity. "Don't be afraid to ask the hard questions. But remember, once you uncover this truth, there is no turning back." Before I could comprehend the gravity of her words, Val's panic-stricken expression snapped me back to the present, her protective instincts ablaze. She shifted between me and my alleged uncle, as if standing sentinel against the dark tide that sought to envelop us. "Isla, they're almost here and you have to decide." Her urgency made my heart race, the gnawing conflict tearing me apart. What lay beyond this moment was an abyss that beckoned with questions but also with grave dangers. The tension climaxes, my mother and uncle poised in stark contrast, one representing the light of a longed-for reunion, the other the shadows of previous obscurity. My resolve quaked beneath the realization that I stood on the precipice of a choice that could redefine everything. "Run, Isla," Val shouted, desperation lacing her words like barbed wire. "Don't let them take you. I'll hold them off." I turned, panic mixing with uncertainty, as I caught the flicker of braver emotions within my mother's Gazean unspoken promise that I would not face this alone. But then, an ear-splitting noise erupted from behind us. A deafening rattle of gunfire ruptured the still night air, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. Instinctively, I yanked Val closer, my heart pounding with the icy realization that our moment of decision had morphed into a deadly race against time. Suddenly, everything fractured into chaos. creating a raw desperation that electrified the atmosphere. The haunting echo of our past whispered against the encroaching storm, pulling us into a maelstrom that blurred the lines of trust, loyalty, and the fierce battle for self-identity. As the shadows descended, revelations loomed over us like unrelenting clouds, promising answers but carrying profound dangers of what lay beyond. And in that terrifying instant, I realized that no matter my choice, my life would never be the same. I grasped Val's hand tightly, uncertain of what awaited us, yet knowing that the storm had only just begun to rage in earnest. Fleeing through the tangled underbrush, the cacophony of gunfire and shouted warnings dissolved into a distant echo, overshadowed by the pounding of my heart. I could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me like a heavy cloak, and as I stumbled through the dark forest, the branches clawed at my skin as if trying to hold me back. It was all too much, the threats, the truth, the impossible decision I faced. I stole a glance back at Val. Her face twisted in determination even as our surroundings darkened with tattered shadows closing in. Isla, she gasped, breathless from our desperate flight. We have to find a place to hide quick. I nodded sharply, forcing my legs to move faster. A part of me screamed to confront who my uncle claimed to be, to demand the answers he cryptically offered, but the other part, a more primal instinct, simply wanted to survive. Where do we go? There's a cave just ahead, she answered, pointing to a gnarled outcropping barely visible in the dim light. My heart raced with fear and something else, anticipation. We darted toward the cave, my thoughts tangled in confusion and despair. Once inside, the cool air balanced the heat of my panic. As we crouched behind a shelter of jagged rock, I could hear Val's shaky breaths settling into a heavy silence. Do you think they followed us? She whispered. Point two, don't know, I replied, my voice trembling as I pressed a hand against the rough surface of the cave wall. We can't let them find us. Not now. But the war inside my mind was deafening. The words of the uncle echoed, clashing painfully with Val's fierce loyalty. Isla, you're not just anyone. You're special, Val had said more than once. But at what cost? We can't stay here for long, she insisted, breaking the stillness. Those people will be searching for us. We have to think. What's our next move? As I crouched there, the image of my mother flickered through my thoughts, a reminder of the bond we almost had, of the life she hinted at without fully revealing. Did she know my uncle was coming? Did she know of the dangers wrapped around my birthright? The questions circled like hawks, never settling and gnawing at my resolve. Suddenly, a gentle hand on my shoulder jolted me from my reverie. Isla, please look at me, Val urged, her eyes wide with concern etched deeper than fear. Whatever you decide about him, it's your choice. Just make it because you want to, not because you feel pressured. Her words hung in the air like a fragile thread, tugging against the tempest roaring within me. I have no idea who or what I am, I confessed hoarsely. What if learning the truth means losing everything I know? Maybe you want, she offered, squeezing my shoulder reassuringly. You'll still have me. Can't we face whatever comes together? You don't have to battle this alone. Somewhere in the darkness, a small flicker of hope ignited, albeit tenuously. The idea that I could still have a choice, an ally, filled me with renewed strength. But before I could fully grasp it, a sudden rumble of footsteps echoed outside the cave's entrance, causing the fragile knot of hope to tighten unbearably in my chest. Val, hide! I hissed, panic sharply defining my movements as I pulled her down behind a shield of stone. The footsteps drew nearer, accompanied by the low murmur of voices. I strained to listen, heart pounding in my ears. Lost their trail, but she can't be far, a voice growled, rich with menace. My pulse quickened as I caught fragments of their conversation. Phrases like the legacy and retrieval hurried along the night air. They were searching for me. Isla, we have to go, Val urged, her breath just a whisper against my ear. No, I murmured, shaking with urgency. I wished to be brave like Val, but the gravity of my lineage paralyzed me. What if they find out before I could finish? A loud crash echoed outside, followed by a voice that froze the blood in my veins. Isla, I know you're in there. I'm not your enemy. I want to help you. It was him. My uncle. The cave felt like it was closing in as my mind raced with images of my mother, echoing words of caution and empowerment. But was he truly an ally, or merely another strand in the web of manipulation? Whatever warmth I sensed was swallowed whole by a creeping dread. "Don't you dare move," Val hissed, her eyes steady as she prepared to take a stand if necessary. "Isla," he called again, voice smooth but undeniably urgent. "You must trust me. There are many truths you'll need to confront, and I'm the only one who can help you understand who you really are." "Isla, we can't trust him," Val insisted, positioning herself protectively in front of me as if trying to shield me from more than just physical danger. The space between us thickened with the weight of his insistence. "You've already taken your first step toward understanding. Don't let fear guide your choices now." A silence stretched painfully thin, fraying with uncertainty as I was wedged between options that felt equally terrifying. My heart raced as I glanced from Val's protective gaze to the maw of the cave's mouth, my uncle's shadow flickering just out of reach. And then, a truth I hadn't allowed myself to utter fell from my lips, fierce and trembling. What if I was meant to embrace this? Just as I spoke, a deafening roar echoed from the trees, like thunder crashing overhead. An instinct kicked in. Was it all connected? The shadows were coming. And though fear clawed at my throat, something steadied within. What if my powers were less of a burden than a beacon of hope? But just as I began to grasp that fragile thread of understanding, an explosion rattled the ground beneath me, and the cave entrance collapsed under the weight of darkness. My heart plummeted as clouds of dust enveloped us, isolation pulling tighter around me like cold, damp chains. I blinked through the haze, and for an instant, I couldn't tell who or what remained in the chaos. Val's cry of alarm echoed as I reached into the dark, seeking, grasping for clarity, for allies in this storm that had only just begun to rage. And as the dust settled, I finally understood. I had to discover not just who I was meant to become, but also what powers clawed for their rightful place inside me, even as everything I thought I knew shattered and crumbled into the abyss. The dust only partially cleared when I braced myself against the jagged wall of the cave, my heart racing in tandem with the pounding that echoed in my ears. Panic washed over me like a tide, and a cold fear settled in my bones. The noise of crumbling earth gave way to silence, a suffocating pause where the shadows of uncertainty thickened. "Isla." Val's voice sliced through the stillness, laced with urgency. "Can you hear me? Are you okay?" Her presence grounded me amidst the chaos. I struggled to clear my vision to focus on her. "Yes, I'm here," I shouted, the sound hollow against the stone. "Are you okay? When I say go, we have to push through the other side. We need to find a way out." She was unwavering, her determination a flickering candle in the darkness. But fear gripped me. What if he's lying? I felt the weight of my uncle's words linger like a squall gathering on the horizon. What if trusting him meant leading Val into a trap? The very thought spun my stomach. What if no? No what ifs. She held my gaze, her eyes fierce, lighting a fragile pathway through the shadow. "Focus on us. On moving forward. We will not be given over to fear. We will not be broken by their chase." I end that moment, I felt the tiniest spark of defiance. Her words pulled taut the string of hope, barely alive but stronger than before. "Okay," I said, nodding. "Let's do it." Val's hand met mine, and we immediately pushed against the fallen rocks, the weight immense and daunting. It took every ounce of our combined strength, but as we heaved, I felt my resolve igniting alongside a flicker of power I didn't fully understand. The ground trembled beneath us, resonating with an energy that felt almost alive. With one final effort, we broke free from the debris and stumbled into the open air, gasping as our lungs expanded only to freeze upon witnessing the chaos that lay ahead. Trees were uprooted, splintered against the stark backdrop of the moonlit sky. Shadows danced as figures moved deftly with purpose, hunting through the debris for signs of us. "Those men, they're still out there," Val whispered, her voice edged with fear as she peeked around a massive tree stump. "We have to find some cover." Wait, something tugged at me. In the dim light, I spotted my uncle across the clearing, disheveled but determined, his eyes scanning the area just beyond us. I felt an unexpected pulse of connection. Was he truly our ally, or had he executed another deception? Isla, we can't trust him, Val urged, grabbing my wrist firmly, her breath still shaky from our escape. We can't risk it. My heart thudded against my ribcage like a captive bird. What if he can help us? It slipped from me before I could pull it back. The truth clung to my skin, prickling under the weight of the darkness that surrounded us. What if he knows more about me? Isla, we can't gamble on that. Her eyes, full of love and desperation, pulled at me. You're everything I have. We need to move. But the juxtaposition between danger and the longing for answers flared brighter with each passing second, a burning flame in my veins. What if I choose to confront him? I deserve the truth before I could finish. A loud crack reverberated through the air as one of the figures stumbled. The men positioned themselves to close in, their silhouettes blurred in the infrequent moonlight. We were no longer hidden. Our time was running out. With a final glance at my uncle, I seized the moment. I have to talk to him. Isla, Val's voice cut through the turmoil, but I was already moving, propelled by something I felt deep within. I broke from the shadows, braving the open space. Uncle, I called, my own voice slicing through the chaos. He turned sharply at the sound, eyes widening.
Isla.
There you are. Relief washed over his features, but the dangers were still encroaching. Come quickly. We have to leave. No. My voice was louder than expected, reverberating against the air. I want answers. Why now? Why this? The spectators measured their approach, cautious yet determined, and I felt the tension binding the air like a coiled spring. My uncle, face taut, with worry, hesitated. But there was something else in his expression, a flicker of pride mixed with pain. You deserve to know the truth, he said, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. The legacy you carry is not just danger. It holds immense power. You must understand how to wield it or it will wield you. The magnitude of his words washed over me, burning away the limits of my reasoning. What do you mean? There was a moment, a breath suspended in time, where I felt I could reach out and touch answers, but then a chilling laugh resounded from one of the hunters. It shattered the fragile connection. There's no escaping your past. Isla, you belong with us. My heart sank into my stomach as realization hit. It wasn't just my uncle seeking me. It was a community of shadows drawn to my lineage, to the very blood pulsing within me. And as chaos erupted anew, raw energy crackled through the air. Answering a call I hadn't realized had been made. It was time to unveil what lay dormant within. Before I could react, Val lunged forward, pushing me just out of the way as the closest intruder lunged at us. I felt the visceral pull of instinct, a desperate urge to protect everything that mattered just as darkness wrapped its clutches around us. And in that moment of freezing uncertainty, I finally felt the energy within surging to the surface, begging to be unleashed. But would I be ready to harness it, or would the shadows consume not just me, but everything I held dear? The air crackled with tension, shimmering with the uncharted power rumbling just beneath my skin. I looked at Val, fear and determination mingling in her wide eyes. As if sensing the storm brewing inside me, she reached out, her palm resting on my arm. Isla, whatever happens, I am right here, she whispered, the solid warmth of her presence an anchor in a spiraling sea. You've got this. The shadowy figures drew closer, eyes glinting with unspoken intent, whispering promises that curled ominously around my heart. The energy thrummed. It was my birthright, raw and potent, but I didn't know how to wield it. Could I truly bring light into this darkness, or would it shatter me? Now, my uncle shouted, urgency lacing every syllable. You can do this, Isla. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his faith hit me like a tidal wave. He believed in me. My shoulders straightened, the primal energy amplifying against the rising tide of fear. The shadows approached, but I had felt my instincts push forward, urging me to claim my place. Stand back, I shouted, feeling the words resonate through me, amplifying the energy swirling inside. With a steadied resolve, I closed my eyes, drawing from the core of my being. channeling every flicker of strength into a singular intent. Light burst forth from Menet, the blinding white that could scorch and blind, but a warm, glowing radiance that illuminated the space around Val, my uncle, and the hunters who encroached upon us. The light enveloped us. It cast the shadows into retreat, illuminating the hidden expressions of uncertainty etched across their faces. Gasps echoed, and amidst it all, I felt Olivia's fierce recognition of my own spirit echoed within my chest. "What are you?" One of the hunters spat, fury dancing in their voice, yet I sensed a flicker of fear. "Someone who will no longer be hunted," I said, sounding stronger than I felt, the warmth of the light pulsing with my heartbeat. "I will not be the vessel of destruction you seek." But the reprieve was short-lived. The hunters began to rally, their instincts surpassing the hesitation my light had momentarily inspired. "Get her!" one snarled, lunging forward with renewed vigor. "Isla!" Val screamed, eyes wide as the hunters closed in, breaking my focus. I heard her desperation, and it fueled the fire within me, igniting a new wave of strength. She was my reminder of what mattered, and I would fight for her, for both of us. With a swift motion, I raised my hands, shaping the energy into a shielded barrier of glowing warmth pushing back the shadows like a shockwave. For a heartbeat, everything fell into a syncopated rhythm. The light, the threats, and our breaths, all harmonizing in a moment caught between chaos and clarity. But then, a sharp ache shot through me, a tether to my past that pulled ruthlessly at my heart. Memories of a haunted childhood, of being whisked away from my family, of secrets kept behind locked doors. What legacy lay buried within me that I had yet to uncover? A hand gripped my shoulder, yanking me back to the present. "Isla, focus," my uncle urged, his complexion further drawn, heavy with the weight of truths unspoken. "Wield it wisely. You can't lose control." But loss was already creeping in. There was something deeper, an undercurrent I couldn't fully grasp. The shadows pressed relentlessly closer, thirsting for what I might unleash. "Let them take you," the lead hunter jeered. "You can't escape your fate." Something snapped within me. An electric jolt of defiance surged through my blood, igniting long-buried questions. My family's history swirled chaotically in my mind, snippets of stories and faces. People smiling, fading into darkness. Were they part of Mimi power expanding but victims of the same fears? "Get away from her," Val interjected, darting in front of me. The protectiveness in her stance fractured my heart. "Isla, listen to me. You have to do this. You can't let them win." A shout from my uncle brought me back from the spiraling tumult of thoughts. "Trust your instincts. It's your destiny." Destiny. The word echoed strangely, gnawing at the edges of my consciousness. Was this all unfolding as it was meant to? Had I ever truly been in control, or was I just a puppet dancing to a tune that had already been written? "Release it," my uncle shouted, urgency stark in his voice. "You can't be afraid." Their steps quickened, and I felt the weight of despair clawing at my heart, vying for control. I turned my gaze on Val, seeing her unwavering belief printed across her features. "I'm not afraid," I exclaimed, then allowed myself to harness the power within in a wild rush. "Stay back," I cried, unleashing the surge with a wave of determination, flooding the night with a chaotically beautiful plume of light. It wove through the encroaching shadows like a flame chasing away the dark. But as the light forced them into retreat, in the periphery, I saw my uncle stumble, fall to his knees, and then a dark figure emerged behind him, shrouded in the chaos. "No!" I screamed. It was too late. Just as my light flickered into being, a swift motion and a knife glinted in the moonlight, piercing through the very fabric of my hopes. I had fought hard, but it was as if I had awakened a deeper horror within the shadows. An old power threatened by what I had just unearthed. And as my vision blurred around the edges from the surge of the aftermath, my world spiraled. The light dimmed, and my heart raced in syncopated beats. One truth became clear. Everything I thought I understood was shattered, and my greatest trials had only just begun. The world around me darkened as the light I conjured flickered and waned, my thoughts collapsing under the weight of what had just unfolded. In the shadow of the cave, chaos had erupted, and I felt every shard of piercing clarity slip through my fingers like sand. The air was thick with the acrid scent of fear mingled with disbelief. The hunters stood stock-still as if caught in a spell, and my resolve wavered under the enormity of what I had witnessed. No! My voice broke through the pervading silence, the desperation spilling forth like an unkept promise. I heard Val call my name, but her voice was distant, like echoes in a fog. I lunged forward, a wave of instinct propelling me toward my uncle, who knelt on the ground, his expression frozen between life and death. The shadows prickled at my senses, but I couldn't yield now, not when everything was at stake. "Stay back," I shouted, desperate to fend off the encroaching figures, even as confusion and dread churned violently within me. But the shadows gathered, the air thick with malice and purpose. They were drawn to my uncle's demise, hungry for blood and power. I felt the energy bubbling up inside me once again, this time fueled by Ragia force coursing through my veins as if ignited by the sheer injustice of it all. "Isla." Val's voice broke through my haze, snapping me back to reality. She was my anchor, my steadfast friend, and I needed her light just as much as she needed mine. "You have to focus. We can't let them take him." The words resonated, igniting the embers of courage that still flickered behind the fear. "I won't let them," I exclaimed, and this time the conviction in my voice belied the terror seeping into my bones. I moved, drawing on the heat of their malevolence, channeling my energy to weave a barrier of light around my uncle, against the encroaching darkness. "Enough." The lead hunter's voice sliced through the air, sharp as a knife. "She'll regret this." It felt as if time slowed. Their threats hung ominously, and I struggled against the weight of my own uncertainty. I couldn't let him be another casualty in this battle of shadows. I rushed toward him, every ounce of my will focused on protecting him and, somehow, discovering my own power just as I lost it. But just as I reached him, darkness surged forward, enveloping me in its cold embrace. The light I had conjured flickered against the growing tide, a haunting reminder of how precarious our existence had become. "Isla!" Val screamed, and behind me, I felt the moment stretching. My instincts bore down on me like thunderclouds, thunder and lightning converging in a moment of choice, of acceptance that I end that heartbeat. I realized the truth. My power wasn't just something to wield. It was a part of who I was. I had inherited more than just a legacy. I had inherited the strength of those who came before me. Through the fog of uncertainty came memories of warmth, of love, of family, and of loss. The things I had buried tore free, crashing through like a dam breaking, filling every void of silence with a roar. And then it came, a surge of clarity cleaving through the darkness, a blinding light erupting from within, radiating outward, banishing the shadows that sought to consume us. Bright, unyielding, it pulsed with a strength I had never known, quaking the very ground upon which we stood, illuminating the faces of the hunters, contorting in fear and confusion. "Stop this," I cried, letting the energy swell higher, higher until it burst forth in a shockwave, sending them reeling back. "You cannot take what is rightfully mine." The very essence of my family's history poured into the manifestation of light, and suddenly I wasn't just protecting my uncle, I was reclaiming my identity, my destiny, every joyous and painful moment that built me. In this moment of pure fury and undeniable clarity, I recognized my place within the world, and all the love I had held onto surged through my fingertips. In their moment of hesitation, I turned to my uncle, who was pulling himself onto his feet, astonishment etching his features. "You're alive," I gasped, the joy and disbelief battling for supremacy. It's your strength," he stammered, his voice raw with awe. "It's always been within you." Then the figures around us began to disperse, caught off guard by the sheer force of my energy, retreating into the shadows that had initially threatened to overwhelm us. Each flicker of light that pulsed in the air sent resonating waves of fear into the hearts of the hunters, and as they backed away, relief washed over me like a tide. "There's no backing down." One of them yelled defiantly, scrambling back in a moment of bravery, brandishing a weapon that gleamed malevolently under the moonlight. But beyond him, the throng of shadows hesitated, lost in uncertainty. They wouldn't dare approach again. "Run," Val urged, her voice steady but filled with urgency. "Now." Grasping at the remnants of my uncle's strength, I nodded, turning toward Val as a wave of adrenaline surged through me. Together, we remained the steadfast bastion against the night, a reminder that our fate was no longer dictated by fear, but defined by the strength of our resolve. As we sprinted from the clearing, feeling the weight of uncertainty linger but diminished by the flicker of hope ignited deep within, I knew that the shadows had chased us into the light, yes, but they had also sparked a fire that couldn't be dimmed. We would face the unknown, the legacy that awaited and the inevitable confrontation that loomed ahead, but we would face it united, firmly standing on the convictions that forged us into who we were meant to be. And in that clarity of purpose, I whispered the promise that echoed through my heart: I will not be afraid of the truth. And as we dove into the embrace of the wilderness, bound together against whatever might rise from the depths of the night, my final thoughts solidified into an unyielding resolution. I would uncover every secret, dismantle every threat, and forge a path to a future where shadows could no longer dictate my existence. Ultimately, I would rise. For I was not merely the product of dark legacies, but a beacon of hope, light itself, shining against the backdrop of a night that would never again hold sway over my heart.